Hello, everyone. Today I will begin with a single question. This is a matter concerning Japan as a nation. Did agricultural policy try to maintain small-scale rice farmers? Ordinarily, if farmland were consolidated under large, full-time farmers, costs would fall, profits would rise, and the entire rural economy would see higher incomes and be happier. This way of thinking has aspects that are correct from the standpoint of economic common sense, because economies of scale operate. However, in reality, there are voices like this. The supposed merit of keeping small part-time farmers is that these people hardly do rice farming at all. They work only about 30 days a year. Today, with mechanization advancing, a salaried worker can, by tinkering on weekends, produce about 1 hectare of rice. Salaried income is 5 or 6 times farm income. That salaried income is deposited into JA Bank. Here, let us organize why salaried workers' pay gathers at JA Bank. There are 5 points. 1. The psychology of wanting to manage household and farming together. For part-time farmers, it is easier to run farming cash flows, fertilizer, inputs, sales proceeds, and household cash flows, salary, housing, car, through a single account series for cash management and bookkeeping. 2. The associate member system allows local residents to use it. Even non-farmers can use accounts, loans, and mutual aid, and it has taken root as a comprehensive community financial institution. 3. One-stop convenience. From home and auto loans to mutual aid, insurance, and purchasing, inputs and fuel, the window is unified. Bundle use advantages and administrative simplicity matter. 4. Community-embedded infrastructure. Nearby branches and ATMs, local employers' established practices for salary deposit accounts, and at-the-counter paperwork support. Continued use from the older parent generation is also significant. 5. Avoiding switching costs. Changing salary deposit and auto-debit destinations takes effort. People prefer to settle inheritance, taxes, and various allowances through face-to-face relationships. A behavioral economic inertia is at work. Therefore, even though agricultural output is only 9 trillion yen, JA Bank deposits total 108 trillion yen. Even if a farmer goes to borrow money from the co-op, from the perspective of JA Bank, only 1% or 2% goes to agricultural lending. Much of the rest is managed by the core Norinchukin Bank, which earns huge profits. Furthermore, it continues like this. This time they happened to post a loss of about 1.8 trillion yen, but in the 30-some years since the Jusen, housing loan company problem, Norinchukin Bank has been in the red only twice, during the Lehman shock and last year. Basically, it has earned large profits every year and kicked them back to JA each year, so they engage in political activity for agriculture because they want to protect the profits of JA Bank's financial business. As a result, a triangle of the LDP's agricultural policy tribe, JA, the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry, and Fisheries is formed, and the interests of citizens and consumers are put off. And then the government says, we will distribute rice coupons. Here a question arises. Distributing rice coupons means you raise rice prices through acreage reduction, gentan, and then lower them with additional fiscal burden via rice coupons, right? Isn't this a match pump? Raising with one hand, lowering with the other? Further, voices from the field say, farming operations, actual agriculture and purchases, are deep in the red. Without running finance, Japan's agriculture cannot be maintained, can it? That is because the agricultural business runs in the red when centered on small farmers. Without small farmers, credit, deposits, and loans cannot function. Therefore, high rice prices and acreage reduction, gentan, exist for the sake of the credit business. Small farmers have been maintained up to now for that reason. For a minister from the agricultural Zoku, policy tribe, agricultural reform is impossible. Then isn't dissolution of the agricultural co-ops necessary? They say Abe-san was going to do that. Up to here is the outline introduced as statements from a former top official of the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry, and Fisheries. Now I will state my conclusion first. The conclusion is that the key point is not total dissolution now, but to correct things step by step. Because the mixing of credit, JA Bank, mutual aid, JA Kyosai, and economic operations, collection, sales, and inputs, causes incentives to skew toward finance, where profits are easier to earn, and creates distortions in price and inventory operations. Therefore, we should unravel the mixing, bind it with numbers, and straighten operations in stages. This is a realistic path with smaller side effects. Here, for viewers, let me clarify acreage reduction and rice coupons, just once in an easy-to-understand way. Acreage reduction, GenTan, is a general term for production adjustment that curbs planting to restrain supply and prevent price collapse. Rather than dealing with surplus afterward through warehouses and subsidies, it is a tool for matching supply upfront at the time of planting. Rice coupons are cash-like vouchers that lighten only the household burden at the register without touching the posted shelf price. They do not lower the price itself. They lower what consumers actually pay out of pocket. The difference is settled with public funds. Therefore, unless you move the roots of price, inventory, demand, and quality, the market structure does not change. Then why does the simple schema acreage reduction equals up, overproduction equals down, sometimes fail to work in the field? The answer is simple. When hidden inventories remain on shelves or in silos, demand is weak, and the quality mix deteriorates. If these three align, prices will not rise even with acreage reduction. Conversely, if inventories are thin, demand outlets exist, and the core quality is maintained. Prices rise with a time lag. With all of this in mind, I propose 3 promises for correcting things step by step. First, peel apart the mixing and make it visible. Fortify the internal firewalls among credit, mutual aid, and economic operations, and disclose fund transfers and cross-subsidies. For each regional JA, publish quarterly the ratios of new agricultural lending, inventory turnover, price pass-through lags, and quality, share of, first grade, and whole kernel ratio. See distortions with numbers. Fix them with numbers. Second, match things up front. Before planting, reserve uses across household, commercial food service, processing, export, and feed. Do not hold the leftovers later. Give destinations from the start. Publish a monthly calendar for shelf rotation and processing diversion to make invisible inventory visible. Third, household support must be targeted to pain points and time limited. Do not institutionalize rice coupons. Only during spikes, distribute them for a short period, limited to low-income and child-rearing households, and always attach an end date and ex-post evaluation. Let the market decide the root price, and only temporarily ease household pain. To the question, should agricultural co-ops be dissolved? I answer this way. Total dissolution is the last resort. First, start with de facto dissolution by separating functions, binding them with numbers, and introducing competition. If improvements do not appear, only then proceed to the next stage: legal spin-offs and regional reorganization. Lastly, let us return once more to the starting point. Did agricultural policy try to maintain small-scale rice farmers? My answer to this is, structurally, that was the case in the past. But now and going forward, we should move into an era of unmixing, matching up front, and verifying with numbers. We will correct things step by step. The key to that is not institutional design alone, but transparency and execution in operations. And there is something very important for all of you. Do you remember who tried to carry out the dissolution of the agricultural co-ops? Do you know who it was? Regrettably, it was the late Shinzo Abe, who was assassinated. Shinzo Abe was not trying to do only the dissolution of the agricultural co-ops, but he was clearly a person who was trying to move in a direction close to the current Takaichi administration. Just when he began to move in such activities after stepping down as prime minister, a regrettable tragedy occurred. This is a fact. Everyone, please wake up. When we talk about things like this, many people say it is a conspiracy theory, but please investigate for yourselves based on what I have said today. All of it is fact. Thank you for watching.